So with us diving into the full story of Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon, Logan's got a lot on his plate for this one. Cause now we got a new super soldier program who's like, you know what? Let's make us a Wolverine. Like, why not? And these guys also managed to grab and study one of the Maker's origin boxes from Earth 6160. So with that said, if you're enjoying these videos, be sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications. Alright, so first thing this does is start out with a crazy flashback that seems like nothing at first, aside from Wolverine just getting a drink at a bar, and then he's approached by a young lady, and it seems like a lot of small talk at first, with her asking him if it's his seat taken and making small conversation. And at the time when this lady had just met Logan, she was surprised to see how much he was drinking, and the fact that it barely gave him a buzz, and it even had her like, man, I wish I had that mutant power. And she does have one that we'll talk about in a moment. And at first Logan thinks she's here just trying to get a free drink, but the woman's like, no, I pay my own way. And now trust me, it may not seem like it at first, but this is a very important interaction in Logan's past that we're revisiting here. Because next, when she orders a double scotch and Logan orders another bottle, the bartender tells Logan, man, you cleared me out. You sure you don't want to get some scotch like your new pal here? But Logan's not trying to stick around, so he asks the bartender how much I owe you. And the bartender's like $2.60 plus a generous tip to make up for you knocking out Big Roy. But long story short, when Logan goes to pay, he's like $20 short before the tip. And the lady's like, I got you. So that's where Logan's like, who are you? Trying to buy me a drink. And she tells him her name's Terry. And it's not a problem. Tourist season. Make good money as a tracker for wannabe hunters. Just before she tells him to hold still so she can wipe some of the glass out of his beard that's still there from his scuffle with Big Roy. Though somehow Logan doesn't have a scratch. And while Logan's attention is on telling the bartender not to let her pay, cause he gonna make good tomorrow, Terry looks over to a guy across the bar who raises his glass, and before the two go their separate ways, Terry asks Logan if he has someone waiting for him at home, which of course sounds like another attempt at a pickup. And he just says, told you, not interested. And she's like, neither am I, just curious. And afterwards we see that mysterious gentleman and some others go after Logan. But truly what this flashback is doing is giving us a bit of extra context to what happened in Marvel Comics Presents issue 72, which was the first of many tellings on how Weapons Plus found Logan heading into their 10th installment. But this time, instead of us going into the information collected or even Wolverine's flashbacks, and I mean we still do the flashbacks, but instead of rehashing the story of Professor Thornton bringing in Dr. Abraham Cornelius, or any of the Romulus details added later, this story starts with Terry O. Barnes, the tracker who let them know where exactly they could find Logan. And after this, coming back to the present day, we see a guy running with some wolves in his birthday suit, which on most nights might have you like, oh, I know that guy, that's Logan. But even at a quick glance early on, it's made clear to us that this is someone else. And we'll learn more about the new guy as this story continues. Because next when we jump back to Logan, who's waking up from a nightmare that he's been having every day this past week, with him feeling like something or someone is gnawing at him. Which again, this is leaning very heavily on the Marvel Comics Present vibes from issue 72. With how it was the lead up to Weapon X. But this go around, and again back in the present day, Logan wakes up to find a very familiar face just below and across the street waiting on him. And this of course is none other than Terry O. Barnes, who has aged like a normal person, and she's come here to ask for Logan's help. But she doesn't go about it in the best way, with her telling him that she's having trouble finding a mutant. So Logan's like, oh, still hunting our kind? Still Terry O. Barnes mutant tracker for hire? But she doesn't do that anymore, and she didn't come all this way to find Logan just to apologize. And as it turns out, she's using her tracking powers to save mutants now. And at first it says Logan like, hey, like he's having a hard time believing that she didn't know what Weapon X was, or what they were going to do to him, or what they were going to do next. And it has her at a loss for words for a moment. But then she tells him there's a new super soldier project. There's always a new super soldier project, but this one's a private company. Name's Prime Warrior. And they've been taking a page from the Weapon X program. They've been going after mutants, ones like yourself who can heal well. I've been staying ahead of them, warning people they've been targeting, but they finally managed to grab one. Young guy named Tyler Torrens, animalistic mutant powers, which he rarely displays. I was tracking him after the Black Ops squad took him, but he just disappeared. I couldn't sense him. At first I thought they may have killed him, but I can usually sense a fellow mutant for a while after death. His last location I could pick up was near Prime Warrior's facility outside Ozarks. I think they were onto me. I think they found a way to hide his mutant genes so I can't track him. And that's where Logan's like, or he's dead and they incinerated him. And you're just another fool trying to make up for your past sins. And that's where Terry just gets up and starts packing her stuff like, yeah, well, some of us don't have the X-Men to help with that. And you can tell Logan knows that he went a little bit too far with that last one. So he stops her and he lets Terry know that he'll help. But as they head on their way to the Prime Warriors facility outside of Ozark, Logan dozes off and he has another nightmare about Weapon X, which again really feels like Chip Zdarsky is bringing back some of the old school pre-House of M flashbacks that Logan would have prior to him getting his memories back. But after this, once they get close enough, they take the rest of the way on foot. And that's where Terry asks Logan if he's getting anything. So he tells her people, and also burning. And at a first look, Terry isn't sure if this is something that Tyler did, the missing kid. But Logan tells her it was likely an explosion from something already inside. So Logan ends up grabbing a couple guys so they can use their hazmat suits and walk in for a closer look. And stuff like this always makes me chuckle, because imagine going to work one day and then Wolverine shows up, knocks you out and takes your clothes. But as soon as they go inside, they hear Professor Ash just going off, because this is one of many attacks. The same happened with their Denver facility, their Billings facility, and now here with the bombers successfully avoiding all cameras. And dude is just like, it's a joke. We're a private military company that seemingly anyone could just waltz into and blow up. Then he's like, I'm calling Pruitt. I could tolerate losing the mutant, who they put about $10 million worth of upgrades in, but that box could change history. And now as Logan and Terry are looking around and try to piece things together, because they don't know if Tyler was also taken by the person who blew this place up, or if he was just freed. But then they come across some information on a particular box that ain't from around here, so to speak, as well as this Tyler kid. Because Logan plays back this video that says, unknown origin, trace this one's energy source back to northern Alberta. After the initial contact with them in New York, the readouts show immense power inside, seemingly with the mechanism to imbue someone with that power. Professor Ash wisely doesn't want it triggered, or else we may lose the ability to study and duplicate it. So now Logan and Terry are like, okay, the box, now we know what he's talking about. But there's still the question of who has it now. Did the mystery bomber steal it, or did Tyler take it? And now some of these things we won't get more details on until late May, when Reborn Ultimate Impact comes out with Miles Morales. But before that time comes, do be sure to check out Ultimate Spider-Man Incursion. Just saying. Because this origin box has quite the backstory. But as Logan keeps checking out more footage on this iPad Pro, it goes on to say, Day 17, subject is resisting the adamantium hybrid. It could simply be his regenerative abilities pushing back, or his will. Then one of the doctors says, I think we should increase the dosage, overwhelm the resistance. What do you think, Dr. Lou? And she's just like, worth a try, as poor Tyler's just begging them to stop. But as Logan's watching the poor kid go through it in this video, the same two doctors from the video walk in the room, and they're like, hey, this area is off limits. You're supposed to be taking care of the South Wing. Then one of them's like, wait, who are you? Oh God, it's him. As Logan pops his claws, and he gives these guys the young Vader treatment. And they over here looking like, Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we going to do? And you could say they are younglings compared to Logan because he's old. And now when Logan's done, Terry gives him the shirt that Tyler had when he was abducted. And she asks him if that's enough for him to go off of. So Logan grabs it, he takes a couple sniffs, and he's like, that'll do. And they head on their way, but just outside, we see Professor Ash having that conversation with Pruitt, which is more along the lines of him going off again because of what has happened to his work. But on the other end, Pruitt is like, your work is my money, so I'm definitely feeling this as well. So the professor leans in a bit by bringing up the importance of the box, and once again, Pruitt is like, I know all this. So that's where the professor loses his cool again. And he tells Pruitt, you run a private military. Hunt these, and I'm not sure exactly what word he used there. He might have said ninjas, or maybe not. Let me stop before something gets started. But he raises his tone at Pruitt by telling him, hey, you run a private military, hunt these something and others down. And he tells Professor Ash, I do, and I will. And if you ever talk to me like this again, I'll have my private military handle something else too. As one of his men puts a gun to the professor's head, as Pruitt wraps this up by telling the professor that he's going to send a team to hunt for the box and the mutant. And right after that, word comes in about two of their scientists being attacked and having injuries that appear to be in line with a known enemy. So now they know Logan was there. So immediately Pruitt requests to be put on a call with Mortimer to have Frank Simpson flown in to take care of Wolverine, with Frank Simpson, also known as Nuke, being Weapon 7 from the Weapons Plus program. And you know, he has this thing about popping pills, with him having these adrenaline pills that come in red, white, and blue, where the red ones increase adrenaline, the white ones neutralize the previous effect, and the blue ones relax him. And now Nuke and Wolverine have quite the history, so when he gets this order, he's just like, can you do me a favor, sir? Can you give me a blue? And after this, we're sent to another flashback for Logan that goes back to the Weapon X days, where at the time Dr. Cornelius was asking Professor Thornton, when all this is done, what does the perfect killing machine go? And the professor told him it's not your concern. Cornelius, like Erskine or Oppenheimer before us, We work on the science. Since the war, there have been many attempts at recreating a super soldier, another Captain America. It's foolish, don't you think? Steve Rogers was the man for the time. But those days are long gone. This world is one of shadows and blood, so we give them a killer, an animal, a monster. And now this flashback was more like a daydream for Logan, because now him and Terry continued on their way to track down Tyler. And just before this, even though Logan had told Terry to wait in the truck, she still got out and came along because she wants to see this through. And he knows that there's nothing he can do to stop her, but at the same time, it makes her a liability. And now with them moving on foot for what's been hours at this point, Terry says here, people in the shadows doing whatever they want to whoever they want, and no shortage of people willing to help them. And that's where Logan's like, no shortage of people willing to stand up to them either. And he tells her sometimes you gotta be the former before you're the latter. And that's definitely been Logan's journey, as we know. But I'm also glad that he's telling this to Terry, since this is the path that she's trying to take now. And he gets that. But from here they keep moving because the kid has a strong scent, but they gotta keep moving before Logan loses it. But then suddenly he tells Terry to stop when he notices an old school tripwire on the ground with a not so old school camera sitting right above it. And then without warning, boom, Logan catches the headshot. And he can just tell by the velocity and the experience of being shot that this was from long range. So he tells Terry to put it in reverse. He tells her to run, get out of here, just before he suits up and just races towards the shooter. And Logan's thought process at this point is like, there's no time to be cautious, gotta move quick. And whatever traps he springs, he just handles them along the way. But then he's like, okay, gunfire stopped. Doesn't mean the danger's over. It's never over. And as he races up to the top of this hill, he finds a cabin with the lights on. So he kicks in the door, but when he looks inside, he sees a shield. And he's like, wait a minute, that ain't Cap's shield. And that's where he hears a voice behind him saying, turn around real slowly, or I'll put a bullet in your friend here. And now this guy, David Colton, he thinks these guys are with Prime Warrior. So when Logan tells him like, easy pal, we're not here for you, we just want the kid, Colton's just like, sure you do. You want another damn super soldier, another damn Captain America. Well, the kid's gone. He's free. And God help anyone who tries to make it otherwise, as we get a bit of a teaser of Tyler's enhancements, and we get our first look at him popping claws. Alright, so coming back with Tyler Torrance still on the run, and he's a teenage mutant with abilities similar to Logan's, who was taken by a company called Prime Warrior and given adamantium enhancements, which we'll learn more about in a little bit. But with Tyler still on the run, there's a race to see who can find him first. But what we discovered so far is that David Colton, the new Captain America, or better yet, the guy who was supposed to be the new Captain America, busted Tyler out of a Prime Warrior facility when he attacked and bombed the place, so he's the reason Tyler's free. But one of the last things we saw was Wolverine and a woman by the name of Terry O'Barnes, who has a mutant power that allows her to track mutants. They're out here looking for Tyler so they can help him. But of course, Tyler's trail led them here to David's cabin, and David thinks they're trying to lock the kid back up, so he's not having that, because David believes the last thing we need is this company called Prime Warrior to be out here just pumping out super soldiers trying to make another Captain America, let alone creating a weapon who's just extremely dangerous and unhinged, like Frank Simpson, for example. And speaking of Frank, we go to a bit of a flashback here, to a time when Logan was working with the CIA and asked to bring Major Frank Simpson in. But when he did, Professor Ford was highly upset because Frank came in with his face carved up, and Professor Ash, who was Ford's assistant at the time, he tried to tell him that they could heal most of the scarring, only for Professor Ford to snap on Professor Ash and basically tell him like, hey, you're an assistant, I just need you to assist, no more of the commentary. And in Logan's case, Ford told Logan he's going to call the CIA and have them send him to the far reaches of the earth. And Logan was just like, man, that sounds like a plan. But after they left and Logan was still in the room alone with Frank, Logan said a few things here that may have been heard by the big guy. Because in this moment, Logan's like, sorry kid, job's a job. If it's any consolation, I'm done. Tired of doing the dirty work, tired of making killers. Just tired. Going home. Whatever that is now. Hope they make you whole, Frank. And that they aim you towards proper enemies. The bastards and the killers. Hell, one day, they may aim you at me. Lord knows I deserve it. See you around, Frank. And back at the time when Logan walked out of that room, Frank's eyes opened. And those eyes was looking like, yeah, I heard everything you said, Logan, I'm gonna do that. So it's like now when we come back to the present day, at the Prime Warrior facility, where Frank's here checking things out after he was called in, there's a moment here where it's like he's zoned out, and likely thinking of that memory with Logan, amongst other memories, when we see Professor Ash here, who's now a lead professor. But after all these years, he's happy to see Nuke looking healthy, But with Simpson being brought here to take care of Logan amongst their other issues, Professor Ash tells him that the main priority is finding the kid as well as the box. And now Donaldson, who's leading this whole recovery operation, he was sent by Pruitt because he wants the best men on this to get the job done. So Donaldson, he tells Professor Ash that Nuke's basically a gun and they know how to use him. Because Donaldson, he's the one doing the investigative work. But as it stands, they don't know who bombed the place because that person covered his tracks well. While on the other hand, Logan, who was also here earlier, he didn't cover his tracks so well, which is what allows Donaldson to find Terry O'Barnes' truck, which as we know is not too far from David Colton's cabin. So Donaldson's plan is to head to the truck and attempt to pick up the signal for the box from there. So right away, Professor Ash is like, oh, you'll need me for that. And Donaldson's like, do I? Seems to me you can just give me access to your equipment, Professor. And now Professor Ash, he's not just going to let these guys go out there and handle it, not without his supervision. Because like he said before, the work he's done on Tyler Torrance, it was not only extremely expensive, but it's also the best work of his career. And as for the box, he knows that thing has the power to change the world. So I imagine the last thing Professor Ash wants to hear is Donaldson giving him a call and talking about, hey man, I found that box, but then I dropped it on my toe, and now I'm beyond Omega level. Oops. Because again, Professor Ash wants to figure out how to duplicate the origin box before anyone just uses up what's inside. So the professor's like, I'm going, and that's that. So Donaldson asks Nuke if he can vouch for the professor, and Nuke just kind of looks over his shoulder like, whatever. More the merrier. And now when we go back to David's cabin, where he still has Terry at gunpoint, Logan's looking at this guy and he's still trying to figure out who he's dealing with. And now we recently just covered David Colton's backstory, where he was selected in the early 2000s to become a new Captain America when the United States was preparing to go back to war. So we know who he is. But in Logan's case, where he's just going off of first impressions and kind of eyeballing this guy, he's like, okay, this dude's got a shield-like cap, he's got a star glowing on his chest, and he's definitely the guy who blew up the Prime Warrior facility. So with David yelling at Logan and telling him to get on his knees, Logan's got to make a decision here. And when David tells him, I swear to God, I'll do it, and Logan's like, maybe you will. I've seen a lot of people die. One more ain't nothing. Then he pops his claws and he's like, two more ain't nothing either. And he lets him know, she dies, you die too. And that's guaranteed. But Logan's got to make a quick call, and he ends up calling David's bluff. Because even with him seeing this guy for just seconds, literally, maybe a minute, Logan picks up that this isn't the kind of guy who'd want to squeeze that trigger. But when this pops off, Logan notices that this guy's quick. Steve Rogers quick. And he moves like he's military. And that's where Logan realizes, yo, this dude is a Captain America. And then it dawns on him like, dang it, if he is, then I can't let him get to that shield. And that's what Logan focuses on next, by first taking care of David's gun just before he puts his claws between David and his shield. But also what I like about this is how Logan notices, first thing, the star on his chest. Secondly, he's moving like a super soldier. But the last thing Logan mentions here is basically how he went to his shield as a last resort. And in Terry's case, she knows exactly who David is. Because she says here, you're the guy who's been destroying super soldier sites, stopping them from doing what they once did to you. It's personal, and it makes sense, since you're David Colton, the unknown Captain America. And it makes sense for Terry to know David's story, because she has a long history of either working for the government or working against them. And when she devoted her time to protecting mutants, she made it her mission to learn about all the government secrets that were being kept. And now that things have calmed down, for a moment we head over to another unstable super soldier by way of another flashback with Frank Simpson, aka Nuke. Because while he was a part of Weapons Plus, who for some time liked to test their soldiers out on the wildlife, so Wolverine wasn't the first, but it led to this moment where Frank came across a bear and it didn't end well for either of them. And at the time, Professor Ford had just went off on Professor Ash, because Ash said that Simpson was ready for combat, only for him to come out here and get done like Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. But in Ash's defense, he mentions here, the cybernetic implants that Ford designed, they're ideal for handling firearms, or hand-to-hand combat with soldiers, not for bears and not for wolves. And that's where Professor Ford just smacked him, because he wants Ash to take this cutting-edge technology and make killing machines. End of story. And over time, we'll see how these crazy flashbacks have brought us to the point of what's going on now. But at this point in the present day, is here where Professor Ash, Donaldson, and Nuke have made their way to Terry's truck. And as Donaldson is filling in the professor on who Terry O'Barnes is, he confirms something she was suspicious of in the last issue, when she mentioned how she had trouble tracking Tyler because his mutant gene was being suppressed somehow. And that's exactly what was going on. And in fact, Donaldson made that suggestion to the professor to do so, because he knew Terry was working against them for some time. So now with the professor being filled in, he knows they've got a clock ticking, but they might be able to use this to their advantage, because his suppression treatment is going to be wearing off soon, thanks to Tyler's regenerative abilities. But as soon as his mutant gene becomes detectable again, that'll allow Terry to track him. And from there, they can just follow her straight to him. But then it's here where they notice Mr. Simpson's gone missing. And now, back over with Terry, David, and Logan, they spend some time here talking about David's past and getting better acquainted with him, all of which going back to what we covered in our Secret Wars. But this leads to David saying that the things they're mentioning, like Iraq, Afghanistan, and Latveria, all of that was a long time ago. And then he tells him, the only thing bright about me is this Stark Tech where my heart used to be. Because that was one of the drawbacks to the version of the super serum that he was given. It literally tore his heart to shreds. And now it comes to the point where David's done talking about himself. So Terry asks him about Tyler, because her and Logan are looking for this kid and they need to know what they're getting into. So David tells them here the kid has regenerative abilities. So Prime Warrior went all in, knowing he would survive. Sounds familiar. Then he says they developed an adamantium solution infused with pico technology that can be manipulated while retaining its intense structure. Mind control fluid, indestructible metal. And he looks at Logan and says, those claws you have, imagine them able to travel across the room to kill someone while your body is covered in the metal, seeping out through your skin. Incredibly painful, incredibly dangerous. And this really just sums up what all this has come to for David, because when he sees a company like Prime Warrior pulling off this we have weapons plus at home type situation, he's like, these are just psychopaths, ruining lives, making weapons that they can aim at other psychopaths, while the rest of them just get caught in the crossfire. And for a really brief moment, you have both Logan and Terry who just kind of drop their heads and say nothing. And I imagine it's because they both helped psychopaths in the past, with Terry turning in Logan and Logan turning in Nuke. And that's not to brush over the fact that both Logan and David are weapons themselves, because Logan takes the time to make the same point here that he made with Terry before. And that's the fact that they can now choose for themselves who or what they're going to be aimed at, which right there makes Donaldson's comment about Nuke from earlier even crazier. But their focus for now is finding Tyler before Prime Warrior does. And then boom, it's right here where Terry is able to start tracking Tyler again. In his situation, we pick up just outside of a secondhand shop, because as they're closing up, one of the people leaving, this dude steps around the corner to toss some clothes, only to find Tyler back there looking for a new fit. And I imagine these are the clothes that just weren't good enough for them to sell. And Tyler, he's at the point he just needs something. And when this guy sees him, Tyler's just like, whoa, don't say anything. And he just flips out here, and mainly just out of panic and what I imagine is the internal conflict between, hey, no witnesses, and Tyler's true self who doesn't want to hurt this guy. And now fortunately, Tyler's able to reel it in, grab a couple things and get out of there without taking this dude's life. But the bottom line is Tyler is scared and very dangerous, because as it stands, the kid's in survival mode. And in Tyler's case, in a way, this story's given us this comparison of possible outcomes between Nuke, Logan, and David, because in a lot of ways it's comparing where Tyler's been and teasing where he may end up down the line, with us knowing how things turned out for Nuke, Logan, and David. And that continues when we go back to Nuke, who had wandered off, to the point where he comes across this huge bear, similar to the one that he ran into years ago that mistook him for Leonardo DiCaprio. But this time around, when Nuke sees this bear, he just takes a white pill. So instead of attacking this bear or provoking it to attack him, he shows that he's not a threat and it walks away. But then this goes to another flashback where Professor Ford was telling Nuke, you've done well, but you can do better. My colleague and I want to be able to tap into your true self, to be the warrior you were born to be. And that's where he introduces Nuke to the whole pill system that was designed to adjust his adrenaline. And now this is something we've talked about a number of times before. And I almost feel like the blue pill and the white pill, that they've been swapped as far as what they do when Nuke takes them. But Professor Ford goes on to explain here that the white pills are for calming Nuke down and the blue are for maintaining a normal state. And as he's explaining this, he's pouring the pills in his hand. He's like, in the red pill, wait a minute, where's the red pill? So of course he goes off on Ash again, asking him where's it at. But when Professor Ford turns around to ask Ash about it, he finds that Ash is much further behind him than he was before. And matter of fact, he's not even in the same room. And now this leads to a crazy moment because no words are exchanged. Not between Ash and the professor at least. Because after the professor looks back, he turns back around, looks at Nuke, and he's just like, no. And yeah, needless to say, things got ugly. But coming back to the current day, Nuke gets radioed by Donaldson. He's like, hey, where you at? And Nuke tells them here that he thought he saw them. And that's where he's told, hey, your bionic eyes are no match for satellites. And that's where he's given the coordinates of where to head to. And now as Terry's tracking Tyler, she gets just enough to know that the kid is head north. But before her and Logan go, she tells Colton that they got room for one more. And since he's already encountered the kid, it would be a huge help if he could come. But as far as Colton is concerned, he's not ready to get back into the world yet. And in fact, after all this, he's ready to go further off the grid. So Logan tells him here, I get it. You can say it's for your mission, but you and I know that's just the grand excuse. The things we've done, being around people, around life, It feels wrong, like you want to claw your own skin off. But who we are just means we know how to save people, to help them. You help people, and they heal you. Make it so you can have a place in the world again. You don't need to be Captain America, but this kid needs us, Colton. And now Colton, he's listening, but at the same time, he's also checking out these security cameras. And as it stands on one of his cameras, he sees a buff neck incoming. And what follows is enough for him to tell Logan and Terry to get down, just before Nuke booms an opening in the side of the cabin, followed by multiple shots which Logan catches many of. But fortunately, David's able to flip a table to cover himself and Terry. So the two of these guys head outside and Logan tells Terry to stay inside and stay low. And right away, both Logan and David, they're already working together like soldiers. It's like a switch for them. Because Logan asks David that they should flank whoever this is, and David tells him that they should stick together and cover each other's backs. And now as soon as Nuke yells out, "Logan, come out and fight me!" Logan's basically like, man, I already know that voice. When David asks him, who is it? Logan tells him a nut job named Nuke. And he goes on to tell David the way they need to handle him. Because Nuke loves his guns, so they gotta get in close and catch him from the side. But before they get the chance to, Nuke decides that Logan is taking too long to respond. Because right here, Nuke's like, no. Fine by me, freak. I'll beat the hell out of your smoking bones if I have to. And everybody here already knows what that means. This dude's about to RPG the cabin. And that is precisely what he does, with Terry inside. Alright, so in the last talk, we left off with Nuke making his way to David Colton's cabin and hitting it with a rocket launcher, believing Logan was inside. But as we know, the only person in that cabin at the time was Terry Barnes, the mutant tracker, who originally found Wolverine years ago for the Weapon X program. And recently she's been trying to right her wrongs by helping the new Wolverine, only to get boomed on by a pill-popping psycho. And now as this continues, we go back and forth with some flashbacks that tell us more about David Colton when he first became a super soldier. And now most of his story leading into this we got in Our Secret Wars, and I have a link to that full story in the description. But this flashback tells us a bit more, because at this time when David was undergoing the final stage of his treatment, which was being handled by Dr. Seraph, and it gives us a really good backstory that just lets us know how much more David had to deal with back then, on top of everything else during Our Secret Wars. Because at this time, we start out with the doctor telling David this is his final treatment, and how this procedure is a lot different than what Dr. Ernstine gave Steve Rogers, since those details were lost to time. But back then when David told Dr. Seraph that he's glad that they have patriots like the doctor, who are working to save America, this had the doctor like, well, I don't really consider myself a patriot. Not really. I appreciate the opportunities this country gave my parents when they moved here, and this opportunity, the ability to do my work, but it's the science that drives me, absolute physical truths. A country is shifting, always unsteady. One day it accepts me into its bosom, and the next, it could want me dead or sent back, air quotes, to a country I've never even stepped foot in. And now mind you, this is taking us back to just after September 11th of 2001. So the doctor's talking about what he's got to go through on a day-to-day. So in response, David tries to tell him that's not what America's about. It's the enemy who wants to tear them apart, while the doctor's making them better and stronger. And he tells the doctor people are going to see our country is made up of all kinds of heroes like yourself, once I'm kicking Taliban butt as Captain America. And when he says that, I'm like, I see what you mean, but you're kind of missing the point. But at this time, David wasn't Captain America yet, because there were other candidates who had also went through the procedure, who were being considered for the role. And another candidate at the time was a guy named Chuck, who became David's friend in the process. Because when he walked in for his last treatment and he heard David talking about when he becomes Captain America, Chuck was like, not so fast, you about to be my grown-ass Bucky, which is hilarious. But even with the two of them competing to be the next Captain America, these guys definitely had each other's backs. But it was also on this day following their last treatment when General Ross came through to let them know that their trainers okayed them for combat, but he was going to ease them into the fight by starting them out on a mission that took place on home soil that would really become the final test to see which one of these guys had what it took to be the next Captain America. But jumping back into the present day, we pick up with Logan saying, Terry Barnes, mutant hunter. Decades ago, she tracked me down for the Weapon X program. I wanted her dead for a long time before I learned that people could change, atone. Lord knows I've tried. The man on the other end of the rocket launcher, Nuke, maybe he can change too, but I don't want him to. I want him on the other end of my claws. And man, if that ain't one of the realest things Logan has ever said, because it's a wonderful and beautiful thing when someone turns their life around and they try to be better. But there's some people who are not going to change, and that's okay too, because somebody's got to catch these hands, or claws in Logan's case. But when Logan goes to the wreckage, he finds that Terry Barnes is still alive, though heavily injured, and now Nuke's backup's on the way. So Logan picks her up along with David's shield, so he's not just a running bullet filter. And David tells them to head south and don't deviate, Because with David laying low in this cabin for so long, he had the surrounding area booby-trapped and an escape route ready to go. And now Logan continues here saying, David Colton, super soldier gone rogue. You don't set up off the grid without a plan in place for when you're found. And that's where David triggers an explosive to get Nuke and the others off their backs. And it works because by the time all this clears up, Wolverine and the others will be gone. Which of course has Nuke feeling some kind of way since he risked it all only to come up empty-handed. And now as part of David's escape route, he's got a plane on the water ready to go. And as it stands, they're running out of time to find Tyler Torrance, the teenage super soldier who David helped escape from Prime Warrior. But in addition to that, you also have Terry Barnes, who's critically injured and they don't know how much time she has. But in spite of this, Terry tells them to focus on finding Tyler because she needs to do this. Because again, she's trying to make up for all the mutants she's tracked down and handed over to organizations like Prime Warrior. And once they get in the plane, David tells him that he thinks he knows where the kid is because after he helped Tyler escape from Prime Warrior, when they got back to the cabin, they started talking. And that's where David told Tyler everything he knew about Prime Warrior. And even then, David had a feeling that eventually Tyler was going to want to go get payback. And that's where Logan's like, okay, well, who's the guy in charge of Prime Warrior? And David tells him, Nick Pruitt, facility in South Dakota. We have enough fuel to get there, but it's heavily fortified. There's a reason why I've been taking out their satellite operations. And that's where Logan's like, yeah, well, they ain't fortified against me. And now when we catch up with Tyler, at this point we find that he's hitched a ride with a truck driver who's already heading where he wants to go. But along the way, he tells Tyler like, hey, don't mean to pry, kid, but you look a little young to be out here on your own. And Tyler's like, I'm 18. And the driver's like, sure, but still, do you have a place you're going to, a warm bed, or are you just running away from something? Like, you can tell this guy's genuinely concerned. But all Tyler tells him is that he's got an appointment with someone very important who needs something that he has. And that's where we see the Maker's box sitting in his bag. And it has me thinking like, man, it's a good thing this driver or no one else is out here trying to rob the kid, because that would have gotten ugly real quick. But as it stands, like David said, Tyler is on his way to see Mr. Pruitt. But right now, back over at what used to be David's cabin, we find that Nuke has been joined by Professor Ash and Donaldson, where Donaldson's just going in on Nuke here. Because he's like, okay, so we've ID'd Logan and the woman, but we still got nothing on the terrorist. So Nuke's like, yes, sir, on Logan and O'Barnes, and no, sir, for the terrorist. And so Donaldson's like, okay. Would that be because you were too busy ignoring my command to wait for the support team, Simpson, while you blew up our only lead? And now, as we know, Nuke was brought in to deal with Wolverine as part of the team, so they can find the origin box and the terrorist who relieved Prime Warrior of both of them, only for Nuke to turn this into a personal hunt for Wolverine. But even with him going off the rails, he proved to be helpful, because in the middle of all this, Professor Ash finds a box marked as Stark Tech for a medical arc reactor. And as soon as he sees that, he realizes that it's David Colton, so he hops on the call with Mr. Pruitt right away, who's expecting to hear good news at this point from the professor. But Professor Ash just lets him know, like, hey, it's not good news, but listen, Logan and O'Barnes got away. No sign of Tyler Torrance or the box. And I believe I know who the bomber is. A super soldier from Project 1, Project Renewal. That procedure damaged the hearts of the applicants. One received medical assistance from Tony Stark, and I just found evidence of that. Major David Colton, he was Captain America for a brief time. Now, after getting this information, Mr. Pruitt basically has an idea of where all this is headed. So he just says here, I see. A lot of rogue elements here, Ash. I'm going to suggest your group returns to home base. All roads lead here after all. And if they take those roads, we'll meet them in kind. And that's where we see Mr. Pruitt looking down on a whole herd of buff necks. So if anyone comes here looking for a fight, he's going to have something waiting on him. And now for a moment here, we do another flashback, with it taking us to David and Chuck's mission, where the two of them have been assigned to join a team who are tracking down Khaled Al-Omar. And they're given some information on Khaled. They're told that he was doing some flight training outside Orlando, but he broke his arm before September 11th, and they recently found him staying by himself in a motel. And at the time, the team leader let David and Chuck know that the plan is to take this guy in alive, so they can find out if there are others or if he's really the last one. But the team leader goes on to tell David and Chuck, like, hey, I'm not a fan of this being a test for you two roid jobs, so don't F this up, understood? And David's over here like, yes, sir, we know the drill. And I just imagine the team leader being like, yeah, whatever, go pee in a cup. All right, y'all, let's move. Because aside from this, we know David's going to go on to hear a lot more of this. Because unlike Steve Rogers, David got his enhancements in an age where all kinds of people are taking all sorts of performance enhancement drugs. And even at this time, people have seen the unpleasant aftermath of many cases. So it makes sense that a super soldier in the early 2000s would be frowned upon and teased. But nonetheless, when they get to this guy Khaled's room, he comes out the back door one-armed and dangerous, knocking David off the fire escape and busting shots at the other team members, only to then set off an explosion to give himself a head start. Because like Logan said, you don't go off the grid without a plan in place for when you're found. And this dude Khaled has got his plan going in motion. And now when David gets up, he sees Chuck moving. He's on this guy and dude's making a move for a plane. So David gets right up and he goes after him too, with David noticing that this guy's heading towards the airfield. But while they're chasing after him, Chuck starts to slow down. and he grabs his chest before collapsing to the ground. And even when David goes to help him, Chuck just tells him, don't stop, go get him. And the way that Chuck says this is a very emotional moment, because when David rolls him over, Chuck tells him like, go get him, Cap, because Chuck knows that he's done here. But even now, this Khaled guy making it to the plane, he gets it started, he hits the runway, and he's climbing up speed for takeoff, only to find David standing out in front of him, ready to block this plane head on with his shield. And I'm just like, man, say what you want about David Colton, but man, dude gets down when he needs to. And now this effectively stopped the Khaled guy from getting away, though I doubt they were able to get any information out of the guy after. Don't ask me why, I just doubt that he had anything else to say. But David's main concern in that moment was Chuck, so he rushed back over to see if he was alright, but by that time, Chuck was already gone. So yeah, as we see more of these flashbacks, we continue to learn more about what David's gone through, and it doesn't stop here. But first, when we head back into the present day, with Logan and the others making their way to South Dakota, we find Logan telling David like, okay, so wait a minute. You gave this kid the names of his torturers and didn't think you were sending him into a death trap, knowing he would go after them. But for David, it wasn't like that. He just figured the kid just deserved to know. And if he wants to make them pay, that's up to him. And he makes it clear to Logan that he didn't tell the kid what to do or what not to do, because he doesn't give orders and he doesn't take them. Not anymore. And that's what Terry Barnes says here. Tyler has every right to kill Pruitt, the same way Logan had every right to kill me. But Logan makes it clear that her case is different, because she spent the rest of her life trying to make up for that. And it's highly unlikely that Prime Warrior's CEO is suddenly going to have the same change of heart. So that's where David asks Logan, so when we find him, you putting the claw through his skull, or just hoping he comes to God like old Barnes here? Logan tells him, I kill when I have to save others. That's been my version of coming to God. I try the same way Terry, and it's right then when he notices that she's gone. And it's just like, man, she was trying to make things right. But the crazy thing is, you never know how much time you got to do what you can. And now that's when Logan says here, Terry Barnes, a mutant who hunted mutants. There would have been a spot in hell for her if she died years ago, but she lived long enough to deny the devil. I may need another 100 years, because again, Logan's been around for a long time. So he figured it's gonna take a long time to make it right. And then after this, when we jump back over to Tyler, at this point, he's made his way to Mr. Pruitt's facility. And when he gets there, he doesn't start out with any crazy attack or nothing. But instead, he tells the guards out front that he has something their boss really wants. So either they take him to see Mr. Pruitt, or he's gonna take this box and slice right through it. And now Mr. Pruitt, he's watching this over the cameras, and he ain't stupid. So he tells Michael to escort the kid in. And if he gets a shot, take it and alert the Prime soldiers. Because again, Mr. Pruitt was expecting trouble to come his way. But then after this, we go to another one of David's flashbacks, where after the mission, he's getting a checkup with Dr. Seraph, who lets him know that the serum is doing its job and he's healing quickly. And that's where David's like, yeah, healing everything except for my heart. Because it was around this time when David first realized that the doctor knew that he basically had a ticking time bomb in his chest. But Dr. Seraph corrects him, saying that he's suspected. And he goes on to say Chuck's family had a history of heart issues, so I believe that contributed to his accelerated problems. Your heart, David, should be perfectly healthy for at least 5 to 10 years. And that was when David was like, 5 to 10 years? You've given me a death sentence. And that's what the doctor told him, no, what I've given you is a life in service of the country you love as much as I love my science. If I could have a breakthrough that saved lives but shortened mine, I would leap at the chance. And that's where David's like, you don't give a spit about this country. You said so. And Dr. Seraph told him, that's not what I said. I'm grateful to America. I'm just trying to put this into terms you understand, David. You're special now. You can and will do great things. Nobody else made it through the process. And with saying this, the doctor heads over to a case sitting on his desk, and he tells David, General Ross dropped this off while you were recuperating. I'm sorry about your friend, I really am. But he's dead, and nothing can change that. And now, it's just you, David Colton. You won. You're Captain America. Now go make that mean something. So yeah, it's kind of crazy after seeing these memories, and now knowing that David was dealing with all this, on top of what we saw in our Secret Wars, with him falling out with his mom because she didn't want him to go to war after losing his brother, and the secrets he would later learn about the US government. So yeah, it's a lot. So now with him and Logan making their way to Pruitt's facility, David asks Logan like, hey, why are you bringing the shield? Aren't you immortal or something? And Logan tells him, I mean, I could take a bullet, but the fact that you don't use the shield and you don't throw it away means it's important. It stands for something, and you may not think you're worthy of it now, but people change. And now when they get here, they just see bodies laid out left and right, just before hearing the voice of someone say, Brat had spunk. I'll give him that, but he ain't a super soldier. Not like us. Now, what do you say? Should we open his housewarming gift referring to the box, but at this point he done beat the drool out of Tyler. So coming back, this continues with Tyler Torrance, the young mutant with similar powers to Wolverine, who was recently given adamantium enhancements from Prime Warrior. And like we saw, he made his way to their South Dakota facility to see Mr. Pruitt, because the leading suspicion right now is that Tyler wants to take his Prime Warrior revenge straight to the top. But there's a little more to it that we'll see in a moment here. And like we saw, when he arrived, he brought along with him one of the Maker's origin boxes, while threatening to destroy it, so security would take him straight to Mr. Pruitt, only for him to use this as an opportunity to take both the kid and the box. But soon after, with Wolverine and the super soldier David Colton making their way here, in hopes of finding Tyler before he got in way over his head, they arrived only to find a ton of guards laid out and one of Prime Warrior's biggest soldiers, who's actually an enhanced clone of Frank Simpson, so is more or less a super nuke, if you will. And this guy's already managed to stop Tyler and take the origin box from him, because keep in mind, with as powerful as this kid is, because he's basically Wolverine with the adamantium symbiote, if that was a thing. But with as powerful as he is, he really hasn't figured out how to fully use his enhancements. He doesn't have the training, nor anywhere near the experience as someone like Logan or David for that matter, because if he did, no one in this building would have stopped him. And now before this continues, we're given another quick flashback for David Colton that picks up just after our Secret Wars, following his surgery when he had an arc reactor put in his chest, compliments of Tony Stark. But as soon as Colton got out of his surgery, General Ross was just going off, talking about 17 Latvians dead. Thank God they were all soldiers. And he's even like, I hate to say it, but thank God Steve Rogers was there to stop you from killing more. Because again, back at the time when David Colton learned America's dirty little secret, with how the US had helped Doom come to power and become ruler of Latveria. This made David go off, so he just started killing Latvian soldiers left and right. So after he came back and got out of surgery, General Ross was like, we don't want a trial, we don't want this leaking out, so you're being discharged. And he told David from that day forward that he would just be a private citizen. And as far as the arc reactor in his chest, David was given instructions on how to do routine maintenance, which right there explains the Stark equipment found in his cabin, or what was left of his cabin. But in this moment, David asked the general what about the shield, because in spite of what David went through leading up to this, that shield still meant something to him. But at the time, the general told him that's US property, and he even told David that he's not even fit to shine the thing. And back then, that was that. And now currently, aside from what's going on with Wolverine and David, over by Nuke, now that Professor Ash knows who they're dealing with, and that it was David who attacked their Prime Warrior facility, and that him and Logan are now dealing with Mr. Pruitt's new, untested Prime Warriors. He soon after just goes off on Nuke for turning this into his own personal revenge mission, because the professor wants that box, not just for Prime Warrior, but he wants to be the person who replicated its technology and the power inside, so it'll be like he was the man who changed the world, because for years his career has basically been in Professor Ford's shadow. But also with Professor Ash having been there during the early days of Frank's Weapon 7 development, that makes this a little personal too. But he goes off telling Nuke things here like, you were created to do a job, and that job is to do whatever you're told. And right now you're being told to get the box. Then he's like, I'm tired of using inbred hicks and feral sociopaths for my experiments. That box can turn good soldiers into pure American power. So for once in your useless life, don't F this up. And Nuke just stands there taking all this before just saying yes, Professor Ash, and heading to Pruitt's facility along with his team. And right now over there with Logan, who's picked up right away that this is a clone of Nuke. Because he's like, oh yeah, this guy's still got that new murder baby smell. Almost like a dangerous baby clone cologne, And I think it would be awesome if this dude also had a baby voice, like that would be amazing. But quickly during this fight, while Logan's kind of assessing what he's dealing with here, for a moment, Logan's like, yeah, he's stupid just like Nuke, trying to fight with his hands full. So he knocks the origin box out of his hand, only for Logan to notice that he hasn't even put a scratch on this dude's arm. And as Colton's firing away, it's not even putting a dent in this dude's hide. But those shots definitely get his attention. So he drops Tyler, smacks Logan, and just rushes towards Colton, which now has Logan like, man, this dude's way faster than Nuke, way faster than Simpson. But David's not even worried. He just catches this guy with the uppercut and he's like, Logan, you good? And Logan's like, been better. How about you? And now this is where the original Nuke shows up with his team. And as soon as classic Nuke gets here, he's basically like, WTF am I looking at? Because you got to put yourself in Nuke's shoes. This guy came here to do a job, only to walk in here and find a clone of himself with no shirt on, rolling around with 3 dudes. So he has questions, but when he gets here, Logan's hoping that classic Nuke, alongside of Colton, can play as a distraction here for a moment, so he can go after the kid Tyler, who's managed to slip away in all the commotion, and it's likely that he's heading towards Pruitt, because that's who the kid came for. And Logan is spot on, because when we jump over to Tyler, he's cutting through a number of soldiers so he can make his way to Mr. Pruitt. And I'm gonna tell you right now, this kid is not beating the adamantium symbiote allegations, because every time we see him cut loose, that's how it looks. And again, because he doesn't really know how to control his adamantium enhancements just yet, whenever he uses them, they're kind of all over the place. So sometimes he's doing a bit more than he intends to, which is why he's apologizing through this whole kill streak. And now when he gets to Mr. Pruitt's office, who again has been expecting Tyler for a while now, though clearly he was hoping the kid would have been accompanied by security, but now that Tyler's here, Mr. Pruitt, he's got to think on his feet. So he very much sets this up as a let's make a deal kind of situation, because as soon as Tyler walks in, he's like, Tyler, I won't bite, but I suspect you do, don't you? Which right away puts Tyler into the you did this to me mode. So Pruitt of course takes credit for the adamantium, but the rest of it as far as Tyler's feral nature and his mutant abilities, Pruitt's like, oh no, that's all you and your parents. But now that they're here having this conversation, we find out that Tyler's after more than just revenge here, because revenge was mainly the assumption that David Colton had made, and I guess alongside of Logan too, as far as what they thought Tyler had come here for. But now that he's here, when he threatens to destroy the origin box, he can care less if it blows them both up. But he tells Mr. Pruitt that he basically wants to go back to who he was and go back to normal, because he's like, get this thing out of me. Only for Pruitt to come at him with the hey, if you give me the box, I can give you a device, something that can dampen your mutant gene, dull that anger, that bloodlust you feel. I can make you normal again. Which, as we know, just going from Logan's case, if Pruitt dampens Tyler's healing factor, the adamantium alone's gonna kill him. So really it's a terrible deal. And right now, back over with Nuke and Colton, the new Nuke is telling Classic Nuke and his team to stay back so they don't accidentally hit him. And before he even finishes the sentence, new Nuke catches a headshot from Classic Nuke. And like we've seen, Classic Nuke, he's low-key on a run of just being tired of all this. And it's almost like Colton can see that in Nuke, which is really what it seems like this series is all about as far as Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon. Because even when we go to the different flashbacks, either for Wolverine or David Colton and even Nuke, you can tell how these guys could have a certain understanding to some degree between one another. And we get a bit of that here when Colton takes down Nuke's men, because as soon as he's done, him and Nuke kind of come to this standoff where Colton's like Frank Simpson, codenamed Nuke, plucked from war, experimented on, changed. And this goes into Colton giving Nuke a bit of a speech that I feel like only works coming from another super soldier, because Colton goes on saying here, super soldier, Weapon 7, they did this to you. They're doing it to others now. To that boy, I don't know you. Read your file, but I don't know you. But if you're anything like me, a super soldier, a man who's been to hell and back, then you want to make these bastards pay. When Colton lets his gun down, he tells Nuke, now I'm going to go after Logan, who also knows what we've been through, and I'm going to save that boy. You can go, or you can join me, but I'm not going to let you stop me, Frank. And you can tell in this moment when Colton walks away and goes after Logan and Tyler that this talk has given Nuke something to think about. And now over with Logan, who's just caught up with Tyler after searching for the right room. As soon as he walks in, Tyler just snatches him up. And Logan's like, hey kid, and he's just like, who is you? Because now this is the first time that these two are actually meeting. And once again, you can see what I mean as far as Tyler's powers working like an adamantium symbiote, and that's only going to get crazier as this continues, because over time we'll see him get better at using it. But right now with Tyler asking Wolverine, who is he? Logan just tells him that he's a guy who knows what Tyler's going through, and also that he doesn't think the kid should be poking at that box. And when Tyler's like, why, what is it? Because all he knows is that Mr. Pruitt wants it bad, and Logan generally knows what it is after seeing the information at the other facility. And Pruitt tells him here that they don't know exactly what it is, but it has multiversal energy, so it more than likely came from another universe. But our studies have shown that it's designed to make a person more powerful than almost anything on this planet. It could save the world. And again, those studies he's referring to goes back to Professor Ash's research. But as far as it saving the world, Logan's like, or it could destroy it. And he tells Tyler, these guys just want to duplicate whatever's in there and make an army of killers. And he's like, kid, that thing's gotta go. Because Prime Warrior is some of the last people who need to have something like this in their possession. So Pruitt comes back again with the whole let's make a deal kind of talk. Because he tells Tyler, I can keep your mutancy in check. Hand it over and your life will go back to normal. And Logan's like, nothing wrong with you that needs curing, kid. Trust me. Because you know, their powers are very similar. And now when David gets here, he goes straight to Pruitt. And he's like, curing? You going to use the same thing you did on Terry that blocked her ability to find other mutants to save them from your evil? It's a trap, Tyler. You let this guy block your mutant powers. Then there goes your healing power. And that adamantium compound that's coursing through you kills you instantly. So Tyler just hands the box over to Logan. And he tells him, I don't want it. All I want is to kill this man. As he goes for Pruitt, and Logan's just like, I won't stand in your way, kid. thanks for the box, I'm out. And no, Logan doesn't say that, but how crazy would that be? But instead, Logan tells him that it's not worth it because of all the nightmares the kid will have of reliving this moment over and over, and how much easier the next kill will be. So Tyler lets Pruitt go, and he's just like, he wants to go home. Only for Mr. Let's make a deal, only for Pruitt to be like, okay, you can go home with more money than you'll ever need, just give me the box. And it's just like, yo, nothing can stop this man from trying to make a deal. Nothing except for this headshot that he catches that was wildly unexpected. But it didn't come from Colton. It came from Nuke. And it's like, man, I guess that inspirational speech gave a little too much inspiration. And now while Colton is ready to deal with Nuke, Logan tells them that there's no time for that because they've got a herd of prime warriors coming their way. And these buff necks just blow Nuke's back out with no warning. Like, that's wild. So quickly, Tyler holds them off using his adamantium symbiote, which at this point has me like, bruh, how much adamantium is you holding? Like, how dense do you need to be to carry this much adamantium on you at all times? Because this is crazy. But to get out of this, Colton weakens the glass so they can all make an exit through the window. But even still, those prime warriors, they just keep coming, with even more closing in on the ground. But right now, back up top inside Pruitt's office, we see Nuke approached by the new prime warrior Nuke. And the new one's like, hey, any advice before I take your place? And that's where classic Nuke tosses him some pills and he's like, take a white. As he grabs a grenade and just booms the top level of the facility. And now down below, while they're all taking on these prime warriors, Logan, he's doing good because he's the best at what he does and it's not nice. Tyler, you know, he's the adamantium mummy, so he's going crazy over here too. But David's over here getting worked. And this comes to the point where Logan's like, brother, use the shield. Because this whole time, Colton hasn't been using his shield because he doesn't feel like he deserves it. Like he's not the person who it symbolizes. But even still, when Logan saw it, he brought it. Because he was like, hey man, at some point you're going to need it. And now this is literally that moment. But Colton just looks at it and he's like, I can't. And because of that, he just gets blasted. And now this is what takes us into another flashback for Colton. Sometime after he was discharged, when one day he went home and Steve Rogers was sitting on his front porch. Because at the time, Steve just wanted to check in on Colton after everything that happened in Latveria in our Secret Wars. And this is nice to see because Steve tells him here, that mission was filled with half-truths and hard decisions. They shouldn't have sent you after what you experienced in Iraq, or me, so soon after coming out of the ice. And at the time, even with David trying to apologize and say he's sorry for what he did, Steve just stops him right there and he's like, I know. Believe me, I know. Because even at the time, as wild as David's actions were, there was plenty of moments where I was like, hey, I understand. And right now in this conversation, this goes back to what I mentioned before about the different super soldiers having a unique understanding between one another. Because Steve tells him here, nobody understands what soldiers go through far away from home, the lines that disappear, the anger, the fear, and it's even worse for the select few of us, the ones who go through a program to become their super soldiers, government property, thrown into the worst of situations, over and over again, as if the super soldier element somehow gave us super resolve and tolerance for the horrors we see. I read your file, Colton. All the missions after Iraq, you helped a lot of people in the process. And at the time, Colton was just like, nah, I tried. And it was here when he took the opportunity to tell Steve something that he never told him. Because he told him, I looked up to you so damn much. Read everything I could about Captain America. Imagining myself in those situations, making the same decisions. But I couldn't live up to you, to the name. But Steve stops him right there and he tells him, you never had to. I'm sorry you thought you did. You were your own Captain America, and no one can take that away from you. And as Steve gets up and he leaves this bag with David, he's like, take care, soldier, and enjoy your peace. And when David looks in the bag, he sees his shield. And now in the current day, when David opens his eyes, Logan's right there in front of him like, why didn't you just pick up the shield? And now David, who's messed up really bad, he's just like, man, ruined everything. I was Captain America. You believe that? Thought I could change the world. And the way he's talking, it's like, this is it for him. So Logan tells him, I can save you. At least I think I can. And he reaches for the box. But David's like, no, we shouldn't. None of us should have that power. It's too much. We don't deserve it. I don't. And he's even got tears in his eyes like he's ready to get out of here. And now when Logan opens the origin box, he looks inside while Tyler's back there looking like, what's in the box? And now when Logan opens it, we're not shown what's inside. But instead we jump forward to some time later where we find Logan helping Tyler understand how to use his abilities. With Tyler snipping out some deer in the distance, he's like, there's two, like 200 feet away. Only for Logan to tell him the weak wind probably means they're closer than you think, but not bad. Then he recommends to Tyler a school where he can go and get even more help than what he's able to give. And man, I wonder what school that might be. But Tyler just lets him know that he appreciates it, but what he really needed was to talk to Logan, so he would know that his bloodlust could be controlled. Because really, Tyler just wants to go back to his family and they can help him with the rest. So Logan's like, oh, you got a family? say less. Because if Tyler already has a good family, there's no better place to start. And now when Logan tells Tyler to go grab some grub for them to eat tonight, next he heads over to Mr. Colton, who's looking a lot better than he was the last time we seen him. And now as David's building his cabin back up, Logan kind of pokes a joke here like, hey, it's coming along quick. And David's like he's going to need a place to store that shield. Because even though he hasn't used it since our Secret Wars, it still means a lot to him. And Logan even tells him here for what it's worth, you're a good man, Colton. The fact you think you don't deserve to hold that shield means that you probably do. And David says he appreciates it, but he also puts it off like, maybe one day. And now when he asks Logan if he's still heading out tomorrow, Logan's just like, yeah, needed elsewhere, X-Men stuff, because Logan all over the place. But then David tells Logan something here that takes us into some talks about what happened back at that facility. And this starts when David opens up and he tells Logan, I sought power. Back after 9/11 when I felt so powerless. I sought it and I got it. And I used it poorly. But you and Tyler and your X-Men, you just woke up one day and you had your powers that you never asked for. Maybe that's the secret. Not wanting the powers makes you the person to have them. And that's where Logan tells him that he's sorry about what he did at the facility. But he couldn't just let Colton die like that. So Colton tells him that he knows and he thinks it's going to be okay. Before he just starts up and flying. And now this doesn't get into the powers Colton got from the origin box. He just tells Logan that he's going to get back to helping people, after he goes to grab some more lumber. And aside from that, we're just left with the David Colton will return in Avengers Doomsday kind of thing. Or more so that his story will continue in Avengers Armageddon issue 1, which is coming up in June. And we'll cover that, but till then, let me know in the comments what powers you think Colton's going to end up with here. Because even though someone like the Sentry would be low-key perfect, we've also seen information leading towards the idea of the Sentry having already existed on Earth 6160, back when we saw what was left of his suit in that damage control facility. But either way, let me know what you guys think. And now following this, in what plays out kind of like a post-credit scene, next we head over to Professor Ash to see how he's doing after all this. Because with Pruitt gone, along with all of the funding, Tyler Torrance is in the wind, and his adamantium process was the professor's greatest achievement. And on top of that, with the origin box situation being over with, the professor just made his way to what seems to be Mexico, where he goes to the bar every day and drinks his sorrows away. But on one of these days, somebody comes to the bar and they tell him, hey professor, I'm pulling your funding. And then bang, dude just takes the professor out. And it's revealed to us shortly after that this was Nuke. And when he leaves, he's just like, well, revenge mission's done. Now, where do we want to go for a fresh start? So yeah, as it would seem, a lot of these super soldiers have their own idea of how to get back into the world. But when Avengers Armageddon starts up, got a feeling we're going to see a lot of these faces return. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/DopeSpill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. And now we got some more stuff to cover before Avengers Armageddon kicks off. And I'll have all those on the Armageddon Assembles playlist for anyone who needs to get caught up. So keep an eye on the playlist because I can't guarantee notifications. YouTube be doing that thing sometimes. Or you can just join the Discord where the real notifications go. But with that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. All right, later.